Hey everybody, it's Scott and Rita. Um, we've been talking a lot, all this distraction, elections, people, turmoil, usual news, chatter, static, and finally come to this cosmic dialogue. So we're talking about the million souls. We're going back to that topic that we talked about probably 2 years ago. Was it 2 years, Rita?
Probably, because yeah, that's how we run.
Seems to be our time frame of we introduce something 2 years in advance, then something else happens 2 years later. So, so we detected these million souls 2 years ago in real time, and so Rita, why don't you just talk a little bit about like this vision, dream, or feeling, or I'll just say vision that you had, and then we'll go into a dialogue. Or we'll just go into
Okay.
dialogue without sharing this vision. I don't care.
Well, um, hmm. The well, now you've made me tongue-tied. Yeah, I'm going to talk about I'm from 2022 when the million souls became visible. The million souls who interrupted the systems that were in place in 2020. The systems that were crumbling, they were in place when you first talked about the million souls in 2018. But by 2020, they were crumbling. And in 2020 is when these million souls really got deployed out to occupy all of the strategic places that would undo the destructive predatory powers. And so looking back now that it's 2022, we were aware that this was going on in 2020. And we had learned by that time not to draw attention to it because working under the radar is much more effective in these cases, or it was back in the environment as it was at the time. So, so looking back at the chaos that erupted after what was supposed to be the election, which never really had a chance to be an election, but we all played along. And knowing that this was all being dismantled anyway brought us a lot of peace. And we felt that was more important than anything else, to just be at least two sentinels of peace on the planet. So what did you experience within that, being peaceful in the midst, while chaos was all around?
Oh, well, first I want to acknowledge that it's really interesting to talk about those things in the past without really exposing the real covertness of being underground and all the systems that they did interrupt, many without people knowing, and that's kind of the sense of being underground. So we felt at peace because we did sense all of this work. Back in 2020, everyone was still distracted by the chaos. They were still in those dramas. They were still watching the news media. They were affected by this pandemic, wearing the masks. And I mean, there was so much bombardment. And so that gave such an opportunity for the deployment of these million souls, these spiritual beings that came down and actually, yeah, they were deployed, and they went, and it's almost as if they were sent off into their spiritual battlegrounds to actually stand in the way, to stand in the margins, and do this job, do this work that they did. And it largely was unnoticed, which you and I will like, I mean, I'm not going to like expose the areas through this dialogue, but I will say what happened for our experience. We did become more peaceful knowing that there was a victory that was achieved. That was, and it wasn't based on the dramas or the theater of this, put upon power structure world. I mean, we see it right away. It's like this, the theater will always be the theater, but there's been a victory. And that was the biggest feeling that gave us peace, even during the times of COVID, times of the Biden and Bush, or I said Bush, sorry, Trump. Oh my gosh. I mean,
one or the other, who cares?
It doesn't matter. It was like Gore, Bush, Biden, Trump.
Surely Cheney was still running it all anyway.
Yeah, so it was just, it doesn't matter now. But there was a victory, and that gave us a lot of peace. We knew that those structures had been dismantled. A lot of the crazy technology and basis of control was dismantled. So we did know that there were entities now that stand between. They've created enough of a border and a boundary. Those things stand between. And so 2 years later, people start seeing the result. At that time, there were still the rumblings from the media, the press, all those other entities that wanted to control, still had their babble going on out there to distract. So of course people didn't, most people were unaware. So you don't control people necessarily through technology and power. You just control them through propaganda or the media ideas. So people take a little longer to catch on. And so one of the things too that I saw, that I've seen now in 2 years, is that, well, we got an opportunity. These million souls not only like stood in the gap, but they actually started feeding us information more quickly. They started being helper beings for us that would actually divinely do things for us. They would, we were open. And so whenever we had a question or a need or a desire to actually catch up to the psychic technology, I'll say it in that words, that's probably the closest phrase, the psychic technology of the day that's used to control, they would feed us information that would actually propel us forward at a faster rate so that we can begin to catch up. And once we started catching up, we noticed a lot of other folks in like these esoteric, psychic / healing / spiritual communities that started to change, started to catch this wavelength. It was almost like that whole divine matrix of the holographic grid that we know that we all are a part of just got activated. And so once we received the information, or someone else received the information, it was just disseminated, just distributed instantly. So it was like the spirit realm gave us psychic 5G, on top of this whole crazy um, 5G implementation to actually use it for um, incredibly fast wealth distribution to those folks who want to stay in power. We actually got our own 5G grid on top of that, or underground, that was almost untouchable. So lots of those things were just fed to us. And so in 2 years, I feel that you and I have really amassed some more deeper knowledge. We were given the opportunity to actually heal, see beings being healed, see spirit beings evolve as well. So we're starting to work in tandem with those million souls that stand in the gap, and we're learning from them. They're learning from us. A lot of folks are benefiting, and we're seeing those effects right now. What else, Rita?
Well, another piece of what you just described was we could see, and it was fascinating to watch, that the folks, the people in power who had the technology that had been studied for years, that, what did you call it? Spiritual, psychic,
Spiritual psychic technology.
yeah, something like that. Yes. They were using these abilities for evil. But we started noticing when the million souls came and went to their posts. Well, first, I felt that something had been won before that day that was designated for the election. So that eliminated a great deal of anxiety right there, because it was already won, regardless of what the theater was going to present for us. And then we noticed that all of the attempts to control and manipulate and cause chaos and take power, remove power from the people to centralize it with these few people on the planet, everything they did backfired and sort of came back to knock another piece off of their pedestal. So they just kept getting smaller and smaller, but they kept going with their plan. And each time it would just backfire and actually assist the masses in gaining more freedom and more power. And that was a lot of fun to watch. And it was almost like one of those PG superhero movies where we knew the million souls were not going to use violence in any way on anybody, but the villains just kept killing themselves by their own actions. And so that and so we understood what was going on, the underworkings of all of that, rather than just seeing the results. We could see what was creating the results. But it doesn't matter either way, as long as we get the results. And so now here it is 2 years later, and really fascinating and comical is to watch all the people who were on board fully in the theater are now completely on board with actual truth, because that's the narrative presented to them. And we love them for that now. And we learned to love them before as well. but they really played an important part as well, because they helped tip the scales. As soon as that ship of propaganda and nonsense just was sinking, they jumped ship over to love and truth. And that was just like done deal then.
It is interesting. I mean, I think it kind of stemmed from these million souls showing us the technology and the methodology for good, how to place certain words into the consciousness of people. And it wasn't like it through without manipulation, without fear. I mean, just as much as when people said flatten the curve as a lingo that just appeared in people's conscious language, and it just appeared and it like flew everywhere. There was that technology on the wave. There was an undercurrent through that victory that they achieved that allowed, it was an allowing, it wasn't a forcing, that allowed the words love and truth to just permeate into the vernacular of the day. So even without people even actually like having to like deeply explore it, which they would anyway at their own pace, it just became part of the vernacular. And it was like, and you and I at first were like looking at each other like, what just happened? And then we understood, well, it's the same kind of technology and the same type of thing, only we didn't use fear-based hypnotic suggestion to actually manipulate, but it was actually the same kind of technology turned on its head to like allow people to actually be open enough to know, oh my gosh, love and truth, this is actually like the new platform. Even without knowing what the platform was going to stand for, it was enough to permeate in people's mind for them to start really thinking about what that meant. And that means something totally different for everyone, which is beautiful. So even though the words love and truth are now like permeated throughout the vernacular,
without having to deeply explore those or your own conscience, people are now extremely intensely desiring to be honest at all times. And isn't that a wonderful thing?
it is amazing, and it's somewhat comical, but I'll take it. I'm taking it.
Yeah.
So it's yeah, part of it, I'm still a little speechless about it. So and you know, of course, like you and I, we still kind of skirt the edges of anything. We're still the counterculture of everything throughout, and so we're still pushing the envelope. But we learned 2 years ago we don't have to struggle against the current so much anyway. Our work is often underground, behind the scenes. We've really embraced the behind the scenes because we've been given so much information. We've been allowed to see what our efforts through this new psychic technology have yielded evidence for us, and we just keep flowing with that evidence. I think the thing that gives us hope is like, okay, what's going to happen in 2024, 2 years after everyone has like gotten onto this love and truth like vernacular, and it takes a while for people to like speak things and then for things to manifest, or for them to like, for everything to be integrated. What's going to happen then? So I'm kind of excited. I don't have to be combating anybody, but yeah, but you and I were still on the edge, and so we're still working behind the scenes and being a little more counter, but we can be a little more hidden, which I love. Oh my gosh, you and I are doing work in tandem with the million souls in the spirit realms and the spirit world, where we can be really sort of hidden away from it, yet we know that we're protected and that we know this is our true work.
Yes, the masses don't even need to know that there's very little separation between the spirit world and earth now. And if they want to know, there are plenty of spirits who would be happy to show them around, but they don't have to know in order for it to be so. And so it's sort of like traveling in the 80s. We can have the whole seats to ourselves right now. And go wherever we want and learn whatever we want, any kind of new culture or new technology, and bring back our souvenirs of everything we learned and saw anew. And nobody wants to look at our slides. So we just we just enjoy the experience and build ourselves on it and let it catch on whenever it catches on.
Right. And in the same way, I think a lot of people who are actually like picking up on the love and truth vernacular and having it in their speech and their thought patterns are also taking their own little vacation journeys, just like families and people did in the 50s when new highways and new parks were built, and there was like a whole new culture of the road trip and like going on a plane and getting the full service of the whole meal. But they just aren't really right now. They just sort of like, oh, this is fun. They kind of, and it's okay for folks to like just have fun. And Rita is frozen in my screen, and so I know that.
You're frozen on mine, but I can hear you.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
So we don't have to wake people up. It's not even an issue. There's no even like wish people would wake up. No, there's an awakening that is happening. That victory of awakening has already happened. And it is not dependent on whether people consciously feel it or not.
Right.
And that's the huge victory that we've felt.
Mm-hmm.
And so while I'm as giddy as possible, we still move forward.
Yeah.
There's always work to do. Now it's more of like, oh, what do we do with this now that where does consciousness and humanity go from here?
Right. It's exciting. It's fun.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been that way for a long while for us.
Yeah. And then that was a big question too. What do we do now that we aren't struggling against this other force? When we know that we really sit in this underground realm where the path is already won. What do we do now?
Yeah, well, that's what people are looking at now for themselves. What do we do now that we aren't wrapped up in a drama? It's like a whole world of energy opens up for each person.
Mm-hmm.
And we forgot what we do with that energy.
People still choose to manufacture certain dramas if they want,
Yeah.
That's the nature of things. We were conditioned for how many years, how many decades, centuries?
Yeah,
so,
except it just doesn't catch hold the way it used to,
no.
thankfully.
It's someone in your family or surroundings will say, will ask the question, well, is that really true? Just as a oh, didn't even realize that I said that kind of thing. Is that true? Is that loving?
Yeah, there's a whole new level of self-reflection going on and self-responsibility.
I love it when I hear people say that just randomly. Was that a loving thing to do? I just walk
Yeah.
down the street and like I hear people ask people that question. Oh, is that loving? I'm going to do this for this person, and is that really a loving thing?
I'm
Wow.
trying to get something out of it. Yeah. It at first people thought it was going to take so much more time to sort those things out with your own conscience and perhaps with your connection to a higher wisdom, but it actually just streamlines everything.
Yeah. And it's funny, you know, to think that that is a topic that's often coming up is great.
Yeah, it is.
You know, people always talking about, was that a more loving thing to do? Or is this a more loving thing to do? And this the grappling, I think, is just amazing.
It
Um,
is.
even if it's still surface, I love that. It's just that's a victory in itself. And I
Mhm.
don't, and it doesn't matter if the masses of folks out there don't like our slides from our vacation. So, you know, we're travelers in different places. And they're like, yeah, Scott, yeah, Rita, okay, we get it.
Okay.
Yeah, we know. We know you've been traveling the spirit world. Yeah, nothing new here. Um,
Yeah.
anything else?
No, it's just been fun. These 2 years have been fun.
Yeah, I'm glad that we only had a little small moment of like feeling the drama of it. What? What do you mean people are doing this? We only had a very small moment of that. I'm very
Mhm.
glad for that. So that's a big reflection. Mostly it's just been gratitude and fun and lightness. And there are heavy things too that have happened, you know, in the world. Um, you know, people still cry at tragedy, but there's a little window. I think there's a little window where people are a little more in touch because they say the word love more often. Like, what does that got to do? Even
Yeah.
if they say the words love and truth, if even if they say it and they don't even like really absorb it all the way, we know that that's doing something. Utter
Mhm.
the word love, and you hear that in conversations constantly.
Yeah.
Wow.
Kids hear it. That's the work it does.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's the astounding part. And I think we had to kind of adjust to that and like, hey, Scott, get over this. You're hearing the word love 50 times a day.
And this is just a hilarious example of things backfiring for the predators of Joe Biden in one of the debates saying that you need to have your kids hear more words. So we did.
Yes. And these are the words, I think.
Yeah.
You know, um, yeah, we even like have the word of word, you know, these symbols that like get thrown out at us. I mean, what greater symbols to attach meaning to than the words or symbols of love and what that evokes emotionally. Imagine ourselves. They're like doing a dance when we speak that or when we speak truth. So even just the word. So
Yeah.
it isn't interesting how he did say that. Wow. It seems a lifetime ago.
Yeah. On the record player.
On that 33 revolutions per minute, that's very, very slow compared to our psychic 5G.
Yeah.
Oh, how did we ever embed such beautiful acoustic things on that slow modality? Oh,
Mm. We're amazing.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. All right.